What is your name?
Just enjoy your coffee, sir.
I had no idea it would change my life forever.
I never believed a single act of kindness could change someone's life. Mine certainly hadn't. At 38, I spent my days repairing old pickup trucks in a small auto shop outside Billings, Montana. Business was slow, bills were piling up, and every morning I wondered how much longer I could keep the garage open. My wife, Laura, kept telling me things would get better, but lately even she had stopped sounding convinced. That Tuesday afternoon, heavy rain poured across the highway as I pulled into a small roadside cafe for the cheapest coffee on the menu. The place was crowded with travelers trying to escape the storm. Through the front window, I noticed an elderly man sitting alone on the outdoor patio, completely soaked. Most people walked past him without even looking. His coffee cup was empty, and he kept checking his wallet with the embarrassed expression of someone who already knew he didn't have enough money. I watched him for a moment before walking to the counter. "Add his coffee and sandwich to my bill," I told the waitress. She smiled. "You're the first person who's offered." I paid without thinking twice. It cost less than $5. When I carried the fresh coffee outside, the old man looked up with tired blue eyes. "I think they brought this to the wrong table," he said. "No," I replied, placing the tray in front of him. "It's yours." For a few seconds, he simply stared at me. Then he smiled. It wasn't the smile of someone receiving free food. It was the smile of someone who had finally found what he'd been searching for. "Son," he said quietly. "What's your name?" I laughed. "Just enjoy your lunch, sir." I turned and walked back toward my truck before he could ask anything else. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The old man was still watching me. Not waving. Not eating. Just watching. I forgot about him before I even reached home. 3 days later, my garage phone rang just after opening. A woman introduced herself as an attorney from New York. She asked a question that made no sense. "Mr. Ethan Carter. Were you at Miller's Roadside Cafe last Tuesday at approximately 2:15 p.m.? My heart skipped. "Yes, why?" There was a brief silence. Then she calmly said, "Because that $5 coffee just made you the sole heir to a $48 million estate." For nearly 10 seconds, I couldn't say a word. I honestly thought someone was playing a cruel joke. I even laughed nervously and told the woman she must have the wrong number. She remained completely calm. "Mr. Ethan Carter," she said, "I'm calling from the law firm of Harrison and Cole in New York. 3 days ago, Mr. Charles Whitmore passed away. His final will names you as the primary beneficiary. We need you to fly to New York tomorrow morning." My legs felt weak. I had never heard the name Charles Whitmore before. The only elderly man I'd met all week was the stranger whose coffee I'd bought at the roadside cafe. "I think you've made a mistake," I said. "I didn't know him." The attorney replied, "According to Mr. Whitmore's written statement, that is exactly why you were chosen." Before ending the call, she emailed me copies of the death certificate, the first page of the will, and a first-class airline ticket. Everything looked genuine. I sat in my office staring at the screen, wondering whether my life had suddenly become a dream or a scam. That evening, I told Laura everything. At first she laughed, convinced I was making up a ridiculous story. But when I showed her the documents, her expression changed instantly. She grabbed my phone, read every page twice, and then wrapped her arms around me tighter than she had in months. "Maybe this is our miracle," she whispered. It felt strange. For the first time in a long while, she looked genuinely excited to see me. The next morning we landed in New York and were driven to one of the tallest office buildings I'd ever seen. Waiting for us inside was the same attorney who had called me. She led us into a private conference room where several cameras recorded the meeting. Without saying a word, she placed a thick envelope on the table. Inside was the official will. Charles Whitmore had left me $48 million, his Manhattan penthouse, investment accounts, and nearly every share he owned in Whitmore Industries. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Then the attorney slid one final document across the table. "This explains everything," she said. It was a handwritten letter from Charles. I unfolded the paper with trembling hands. The first sentence made every hair on my arms stand up. "Ethan. If you're reading this, it means every person I loved failed my final test, except you." My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. The paper was old-fashioned, written in neat blue ink. "Ethan, if you're reading this, my family has already proven they loved my fortune more than they ever loved me. I spent the last 3 years searching for one honest person, someone who would help a stranger expecting absolutely nothing in return. Hundreds of people walked past me. Some laughed. Some pretended I wasn't there. You were different. You bought me lunch, refused to tell me your name, and walked away without asking who I was. That's why everything I built now belongs to you." I read the letter twice before looking up. "There has to be another reason," I said. The attorney slowly shook her head. "There isn't." She explained that Charles Whitmore had secretly traveled across the country during the final years of his life. Disguised as an ordinary retiree, he visited cafes, bus stations, parks, and small towns. His security team watched from a distance while hidden cameras recorded every interaction. "It wasn't about generosity," she said. "It was about character." I could barely process what I was hearing. "So, I inherited $48 million because I bought someone coffee." The attorney smiled. "No. You inherited it because you treated a complete stranger like a human being." Laura squeezed my hand beneath the table, but something about her expression caught my attention. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring at the estate papers. The attorney then opened a locked briefcase and removed a small velvet box. This was Mr. Whitmore's final instruction. Inside was a silver key and a handwritten note. "Open locker 214 before you spend a single dollar." "What is locker 214? I asked. "I'm afraid we don't know," the attorney replied. "Mr. Whitmore insisted no one open it except you." Before I could ask another question, the conference room door suddenly burst open. A man in an expensive navy suit stormed inside, followed by 2 furious women. His face was red with anger. "You can't give him my father's fortune," he shouted. The attorney remained calm. "Mr. Whitmore, your father made his decision." The man's eyes locked onto mine. For several long seconds, he said nothing. Then he pointed directly at me and quietly whispered. "You have no idea what you've just inherited." The room fell silent. The man standing in the doorway looked to be in his early 50s, dressed in a tailored Italian suit that probably cost more than every tool in my garage combined. The 2 women behind him, one middle-aged, the other about my age, glared at me as if I'd stolen something that belonged to them. "I'm Daniel Whitmore," the man said through clenched teeth. "Charles Whitmore's only son." The attorney didn't flinch. "Mr. Whitmore, your father legally removed you from his will 18 months ago." Daniel slammed both hands onto the conference table. "Because he wasn't thinking clearly." "No," the attorney replied. "Because he was." She opened another folder and slid several signed documents across the table. Charles had personally written detailed explanations for every decision. According to the records, Daniel had repeatedly tried to force his father into selling company assets for personal profit. When Charles refused, the relationship collapsed. Daniel turned toward me. "You think you won the lottery?" He laughed bitterly. "My father didn't leave you a gift. He left you a target." Those words sent a chill through me. Before I could respond, Daniel leaned closer. "Every person in this city knows about Whitmore Industries. Every investor, every competitor, every criminal looking for easy money, they're all going to know your name by tomorrow. The attorney immediately called security. Within seconds, 2 guards escorted Daniel and the women toward the exit. As he reached the door, Daniel looked back one last time. "You won't survive a month," he said quietly. The door closed. For several moments, nobody spoke. Finally, the attorney handed me another envelope. Mr. Whitmore expected this confrontation. Inside was a single bank card, a temporary phone, and a typed note. "Never use your old phone again. Someone will try to watch you before tonight." I stared at the words. "This is insane." "I wish it were," the attorney answered. She explained that Charles had instructed the firm to protect me for the first 72 hours because he believed people would move quickly after his death. Laura suddenly grabbed my arm. "Ethan." I followed her gaze toward the conference room window. Across the street, a black SUV was parked with its engine running. A man wearing dark sunglasses sat behind the wheel. The moment our eyes met, he slowly raised a camera and took a photograph of me. For a split second, I froze. The man in the black SUV lowered his camera, started the engine, and calmly drove away before I could even react. "Did you see that?" I asked. The attorney nodded without hesitation. "Yes." "Who is he?" "I don't know, but you're no longer invisible." She immediately called the building's security team and insisted we leave through a private underground exit instead of the main lobby. Within minutes, Laura and I were sitting in the back of a black sedan with 2 security officers. No one spoke during the drive. Every time I looked through the rear window, I imagined the SUV was following us. That afternoon, we checked into a secure hotel arranged by the law firm. Before entering our room, the attorney handed me a small envelope. "Mr. Whitmore wanted you to have this after your first public appearance." Inside was a simple handwritten note. "If strangers suddenly become your friends, walk away." I didn't fully understand the warning. Until my phone started ringing. The first call came from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 12 years. "Ethan. I just heard the amazing news. We should catch up." 5 minutes later, another relative called. Then an old high school classmate. Then a former business partner who still owed me money. Everyone suddenly remembered I existed. By evening, social media had exploded. News channels were running the same headline. "Unknown mechanic inherits billionaire's fortune, ****. Reporters camped outside my garage in Montana. Neighbors gave interviews claiming we'd always been close. People I barely recognized were posting childhood photos with me, pretending we'd been lifelong friends. Laura kept refreshing the news on her phone. "This is insane," she whispered. Then she looked at me with a smile I hadn't seen in years. "We're finally free." I wanted to believe her. But something still felt wrong. Late that night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard a faint metallic sound from the hotel hallway. Click. Click. Almost like someone testing door handles. I quietly walked to the peephole. A man wearing a hotel maintenance uniform stood outside our room. But he wasn't carrying any tools. Instead, he slowly taped a white envelope to our door before walking away. I waited until the hallway was empty, then opened the door and picked it up. There was no address. No stamp. Only one sentence printed in bold black letters. "Don't open locker 214. If you want your wife to stay alive." I looked toward the bed. Laura was still asleep. Or at least, I thought she was. I turned toward the bed. Laura's eyes were closed, but something felt off. "Laura?" I whispered. She opened her eyes almost instantly. "What's wrong?" I held up the envelope. Her face lost its color as she read the message. "Don't open locker 214. If you want your wife to stay alive. She looked genuinely terrified. We need to call the police. Within 20 minutes, local officers searched the hallway and questioned the hotel staff. According to security, no maintenance worker had been scheduled on our floor that night. Then they reviewed the surveillance footage. The hallway was empty. No maintenance worker. No envelope. Nothing. The officer replayed the video twice before looking at me. Sir, are you sure someone left this on your door? I slowly placed the envelope on the desk. It was right here. The officer frowned. The strange part is. He pointed at the screen. Your door never opened. A cold shiver ran through my body. If the cameras were right, then how had the envelope appeared? The following morning, the attorney arrived earlier than expected. Without saying a word, she handed me another sealed package from Charles Whitmore. Inside was a small leather notebook. On the first page, Charles had written. If you're reading this, they already know about Locker 214. That means I was right. Every page after that contained names, dates, and handwritten observations. Charles had spent years documenting people he believed were trying to control his company. Some were executives. Some were politicians. Some were investors. Several names had red circles around them. One name appeared on almost every page. Daniel Whitmore, ****. At the very end of the notebook was another message. The truth isn't in my fortune, it's inside Locker 214. The attorney looked at me. We can arrange security if you still want to open it. I didn't hesitate. If Charles risked everything to protect it, we're opening it. An hour later, we arrived at a private vault beneath a Manhattan bank. The manager checked my identification, inserted his master key, and led us to a steel door marked 214****. He unlocked it. Then quietly walked away. I took a deep breath and turned the handle. Inside wasn't stacks of cash. There wasn't any jewelry. There wasn't even a document. Only a single black flash drive. And a folded photograph. I picked up the picture. The moment I looked at it, my heart stopped. Standing beside Charles Whitmore, smiling directly at the camera, was Laura. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. I looked at the photograph again. There was no mistake. Standing beside Charles Whitmore at what looked like a charity fundraiser was my wife, Laura. She looked younger, but it was definitely her. Charles had one hand on her shoulder, and both of them were smiling at the camera. I slowly turned the picture over. On the back, Charles had written only 6 words. She isn't who you think she is. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. I looked at Laura. She had gone completely pale. Explain this, I said quietly. Her eyes filled with tears. I can. Then start talking. She sat down on the bank's leather chair and covered her face with both hands. 10 years ago, before I met you, I worked for the Whitmore Foundation. I didn't interrupt. My job was organizing charity events. Charles attended several of them. We spoke a few times, but we were never close. When I left the foundation, I never saw him again. She looked directly into my eyes. I swear to you. I had no idea he was the old man in that cafe. The explanation sounded believable. But the photograph still bothered me. The attorney carefully examined the back of the picture. There was something else inside the locker. She removed the black flash drive from its envelope. On the label, Charles had written, "Watch alone." We immediately drove to the law firm's private office. The attorney inserted the drive into an isolated computer with no internet connection. A video began to play. Charles Whitmore appeared on the screen, looking older and noticeably weaker than when I'd met him. "If you're watching this, Ethan," he began, "then you've already found the photograph." He smiled sadly. "Laura isn't your enemy." I felt a wave of relief. Then Charles continued. "But someone very close to her is." The screen switched to security footage. A man stepped out of a black SUV. The same SUV that had been watching me outside the law office. The camera zoomed in on his face. The attorney gasped. "I know him." "Who is he?" I asked. She stared at the screen in disbelief. "That's Michael Reeves. Charles Whitmore's former head of security." The video continued. Charles looked directly into the camera. "If Michael finds this drive before you do, don't trust anyone wearing a badge." At that exact moment, every computer monitor in the office suddenly went black. The lights flickered once. Then the emergency alarm began screaming through the building. Someone had just triggered a full security lockdown. The emergency alarm echoed through the building. Red lights flashed across the hallways as heavy steel doors automatically locked into place. "What just happened?" I shouted. The attorney looked toward the security monitor. "We've been breached." Within seconds, the office was in complete chaos. Employees rushed toward emergency exits while security guards spoke frantically into their radios. Then every monitor in the room came back to life. Instead of security cameras, a single message appeared. "Hand over the flash drive, or someone dies today." My stomach tightened. Whoever was behind this wasn't guessing anymore. They knew exactly what we had. The attorney grabbed the flash drive and shoved it into my jacket pocket. "Listen carefully," she said. "If they get that drive, everything Charles spent years collecting disappears." She led Laura and me through a narrow service hallway hidden behind a bookshelf. It opened into an old maintenance tunnel beneath the building. "Charles paid to build this escape route years ago," she explained while unlocking a steel door. We hurried through the dim tunnel until we reached an underground parking garage. A black SUV was waiting. Not the one that had followed us before. This one belonged to the law firm. Just as we climbed inside, gunshots shattered the silence. Bang! 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 Asterisk asterisk. The rear window exploded into thousands of pieces. The driver slammed the accelerator. The SUV shot out of the garage and into downtown Manhattan traffic. I turned around. 2 black vehicles were chasing us. "They're gaining," the driver yelled. For nearly 10 minutes, we raced through the city, weaving between taxis and delivery trucks before finally disappearing into an underground loading entrance beneath another office building. Only after the doors closed behind us did the driver stop. Everyone climbed out in silence. The attorney looked directly at me. "They're becoming desperate." I pulled the flash drive from my pocket. "There must be something on this that scares them." She nodded. "There is." Back inside the safe office, we reopened the files. Most contained financial records, encrypted emails, and videos linking powerful executives to years of fraud. Then one folder caught my attention. Its name was simple. Laura asterisk asterisk. I opened it. Inside was a recorded interview Charles had made just 6 months before his death. He looked exhausted. "If Ethan is watching this," he said slowly, "it's time he learns the truth." I held my breath. Charles looked straight into the camera. "Laura never married you by accident, asterisk asterisk." The video suddenly froze. The screen went black. Then a countdown appeared. Remote data deletion activated. 60, 59. 58, asterisk asterisk. Someone was deleting every file. And we had less than 1 minute to stop it. The countdown kept falling. 58, 57. 56. Pull the network cable, the attorney shouted. An IT technician ripped every cable out of the computer, but the timer didn't stop. It's running from an internal program, he yelled. I stared at the screen, helpless. If those files disappeared, Charles's evidence would vanish forever. The attorney suddenly grabbed the flash drive. Wait. Charles planned for this. She flipped it over. Hidden beneath the label was a tiny switch. She pressed it. The screen instantly changed. Remote access blocked. The countdown froze at 12 seconds. Everyone in the room let out a breath. Charles had built a hidden failsafe into the drive. The attorney smiled for the first time all day. He knew they'd try. We reopened the folder labeled Laura. The frozen video resumed. Charles looked directly into the camera. Ethan, before you judge your wife, you deserve the complete truth. The screen changed to security footage from nearly 11 years earlier. A young Laura was working at one of Charles Whitmore's charity events. She noticed a senior executive secretly replacing financial records inside a conference room. When she confronted him, he threatened her career. Instead of staying silent, she secretly reported everything to Charles. Laura saved my company that day, Charles said. I trusted her from that moment forward. I looked at Laura. Tears streamed down her face. You never told me. I signed a lifetime confidentiality agreement, she whispered. I legally couldn't. Charles continued. But after that investigation, several executives disappeared before they could be arrested. They blamed Laura. They've been searching for her ever since. My heart sank. So, all this time? Laura nodded. They weren't chasing your money. They were trying to erase every witness. The attorney quickly opened another encrypted folder. Inside were hundreds of contracts, offshore bank records, bribery payments, and secret recordings. At the center of every document, one name appeared again and again. Michael Reeves, ***. Not only had Charles's former head of security stolen millions from Whitmore Industries, he had secretly built an international money laundering network using the company for over a decade. Suddenly the office television switched on by itself. Every channel showed the same breaking news. Federal agents have surrounded Whitmore Industries headquarters. The attorney's phone rang. She answered, listened for a few seconds, then slowly lowered it. Her face turned pale. They've arrested Daniel Whitmore. I felt relieved. Until she finished the sentence. He wasn't the mastermind. He just confessed that Michael Reeves has already kidnapped Laura's younger sister. The room went completely silent. Then my phone vibrated. A new message appeared from an unknown number. Bring the flash drive alone, or she'll be the first to die. I looked at Laura. She was crying, but this time it wasn't out of fear. It was relief. We're going to bring your sister home, I said. The FBI had already traced Michael Reeves' phone to an abandoned shipping warehouse on the Brooklyn waterfront. Charles Whitmore had planned for this day years earlier. Unknown to Michael, every file on the flash drive had already been duplicated onto secure government servers the moment I unlocked Locker 214. The drive in my hand was only a decoy. That night, I walked into the warehouse alone. Michael stood waiting with two armed men. Laura's younger sister was tied to a chair, frightened but unharmed. You brought it? Michael asked. I tossed him the flash drive. He smiled confidently and plugged it into his laptop. Instead of opening the files, the screen displayed one sentence. Evidence successfully delivered to the FBI. His smile disappeared. At that exact moment, powerful floodlights filled the warehouse. **FBI. Don't move. Agents rushed in from every entrance. Michael tried to escape through a hidden tunnel, but dozens of armed officers were already waiting. Within seconds, he was on the ground in handcuffs. His two accomplices surrendered without firing a shot. Laura ran to her sister and hugged her tightly. For the first time since this nightmare began. No one was running. No one was hiding. It was finally over. Over the next several months, Charles Whitmore's evidence exposed one of the largest corporate corruption networks in the country. More than 30 executives were convicted, millions of dollars were recovered, and Whitmore Industries was rebuilt under honest leadership. Before closing the estate, the attorney handed me one final envelope. Inside was Charles's last handwritten note. Ethan. Money never makes a person good. It only reveals who they truly are. You didn't earn my fortune because you were poor. You earned it because you were kind when nobody was watching. Promise me one thing, give others the opportunity that life never gave you. I folded the letter and smiled. A year later, my old auto shop had become a nationwide nonprofit training program, helping struggling mechanics, veterans, and young people learn skilled trades for free. Thousands found jobs because one lonely old man believed kindness still existed. Sometimes I still stop at small roadside cafes. If I see someone sitting alone, I quietly pay their bill and leave before they can thank me. Because I finally understand what Charles wanted me to learn. Kindness always returns, ***. Sometimes not in money. Sometimes in hope. And sometimes it changes the world.